Hello and welcome to another edition of Another Book Review. This week I'll be reviewing Donna Tartt's novel, The Little Friend. Usually I have a author introduction at the top of the videos. I'm going to skip that for this time. If you want to know more about Donna Tartt, I have reviewed The Goldfinch and The Secret History, and I'll leave links to both of those spoiler-free videos below. This is going to be a spoiler-free video as well. I will have a spoiler-full video for The Little Friend coming soon. I'll leave a description in the link below. In the description below, I'll leave a link if you're interested in watching that, if you've already read The Little Friend. But just to give an overview of the book for anyone who hasn't read it, it is about a 9-year-old boy in Mississippi, a small town called Alexandria, whose name is Robin. He is murdered outside of his home on, I believe it's Mother's Day, and the majority of the book takes place 12 years later, when his little sister, Harriet, decides to determine who killed her brother and avenge her brother's death. So that is a spoiler-free overview of the book. I can't really go into much more than that due to spoilers, but I will kind of go over what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it before giving you my final recommendations and letting you know what I'm going to be reading next time. So this is the third of the Donna Tartt books that I've read. In some ways, it's a departure from her stuff. In other ways, it's very similar. But I did think that she did a very good job, really throughout the book, but also especially in the first chapter, of kind of building a sense of dread. And the first chapter is the prologue where we learn it's the only time in the book we really see Robin, but the first chapter is kind of leading up to his death and the discovery of his body. And I think she does a really good job of building the atmosphere of tension and dread in that first chapter. There's a couple of other scenes in the book that she does this as well, but the first chapter especially really stood out to me of kind of setting the stakes and setting the premise of this world. I think she gets... there's a relationship between Harriet, who becomes the main character of the book, and her friend Healy, who is kind of her sidekick. They've been kind of friends since childhood, since she was little. And the two of them kind of are sidekicks in this town and kind of go everywhere together. And I think that Donna Tartt kind of got the ebb and flow of childhood friendship really well, especially during this time. And this book is set, I think, in the early 70s. So kind of she has enough kind of pop culture references that you kind of get the time that you're dealing with. But just to kind of get like the two kids, it's summertime, they just go out, ride their bikes and play with snakes and do all this crazy stuff. And I think she kind of captured that really, really well. If there's some downsides to this, I think that the book feels really a little too long. It's 625 pages. I think it could have done with a pretty healthy cut. It does meander for quite a bit. There's a lot of characters and a lot of stuff about kind of the backstory of Harriet's family that ultimately, in my opinion, didn't tie enough into the plot to really justify it being in the book. I think that there are some themes and sub-themes that never really fully blossom. I felt that for the plot, so the book as being as plot-heavy as it is, I felt there were characters in the book who were mercurial in the sense that they acted one way in one situation and another way in another situation, and I didn't really understand the shifts as much as I think I should have. I think there's characters in the book who do really unintelligent things for being really intelligent characters. I'll talk a little bit about that, I think, in the spoiler full section. This book was written in the early 2000s, so this was kind of before Breaking Bad. But there are some characters who come off a little bit like stereotypes from the show Breaking Bad, which I can't blame too much on Donna Tartt, except they did feel like stereotypes. I don't know if they would have been stereotypes when it was published in 2002, but reading it today, it felt that way. There's also kind of bad or evil characters who have kind of physical disfigurements or are mentally challenged or handicapped in a way that some people may have a hard time with. And then ultimately, like I said before, I don't think the book really ends satisfactory with kind of all the threads coming together. And so I think if the book had been edited down to maybe 350, 400 pages, I would have had fewer problems with it. But it did feel really, really meandering. I will say, to give Donna Tartt credit, I think it's sometimes hard to switch the style up. as an author if something's working really well for you. And I definitely feel like she pulled back on some of the prose that she's kind of known for, really this kind of lyrically beautiful prose. I think she did that on purpose in this book to kind of ground it in kind of a grittier world. So I do give her credit for that effort. And I think she does a good job of, it didn't feel like a dream world in some ways that the Goldfinch, in some ways that the Secret History did. It felt very much like a real world that you would maybe be able to enter, and kind of characters who were maybe had more of an edge than the characters in some of those books. But ultimately, I did feel it didn't quite land for me because of the reasons I stated earlier. I'll talk more about this in kind of the spoiler full video in case you've read it and want to check that out. So that is The Little Friend by Donna Tartt. I would recommend it to Donna Tartt completists. I would recommend it to people who... There's a movie called Blue Ruin that I saw 4 or 5 years ago that in some ways really reminded me of this book. I felt that movie, I think, is more successful than this book, but if that kind of concept of kind of two warring families interests you, you may want to check this out. And that is The Little Friend by Donna Tartt. Like I said, I'll have the links to, if you want to check my earlier spoiler-free reviews for The Goldfinch and for The Secret History, they'll be below, as well as the spoiler-full review of The Little Friend. I'll have that down there too. Till next time, where I'm going to be reading Night Train by Martin Amis. Please feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Twitter. I'll have my Twitter link in the description below as well. Till next time, bye.